Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Network. Greg DePalma here, along with Jon Cooper, Associate General Manager at Ourlads.com, as we take a look at the Baltimore Ravens draft class before we take a look more in depth at what's going on with the Baltimore Ravens with Tony Lombardi. But first, we're going to dive in to the draft class with one of the lead scouts here at Ourlads.com, Jon Cooper. How's it going, Jon?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's still a fun time of year. I know there's not a lot of going on right now. 95% of the key free agents have been signed and the draft is over, but there's still mini camps and rookie camps and training camp on the horizon. So it's never boring to be an NFL fan. But I guess if there's ever a slow time, this is kind of it. Even though we have a draft guide, an Ourlads draft guide that we're working on that should be coming out. Is that going to be around late June?
Yeah, the review will be in the mail late June.
Okay, so look out for that. That's why you will definitely want to take a look at the Ourlads.com website. You're also going to take a look at a link in the description of this video where we'll send you directly to that page where you can order the draft review guide. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And this way you'll never miss out on anything happening around here at Ourlads.com and the Ourlads Football Network. Okay. Let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens draft class. And I know you're very familiar with the organization, Jon. And this is a good organization to be familiar with because once again, the Baltimore Ravens do it as good as any organization when it comes up to, because they usually have a winning season. So they're a little bit further back in the draft in round one. And what they do better than anybody is just sit back and wait for that one or two of those really valuable players that for whatever reason just happen to slip. And there the Ravens are to gobble them up. And he did it again with Malachi Starks.
Yeah. We were surprised that Malachi Starks lasted this long. You know, one of the guys that works for us, Hayden Russell, did the safeties, and he was on Malachi Starks as a top 10 pick in August.
Absolutely.
And I never disagreed. And so, you know, we both evaluated him and we really like him. He's a two-way safety. He can play deep. He can play in the box. He can play corner situationally if you have to use him there in terms of that. But he solid nickel, not just covering tight ends, but he can cover slot receivers, good speed. He can blitz. He's just a really, really good football player.
Yeah, do you think it's just as simple as the fact that the NFL just doesn't value safeties anymore?
Well, I think they value safeties. It wasn't, there were some other positions that were really strong. And I think, there were some teams that, we thought, might take him that took edge rushers because they value the edge. I think they value safety, but they value the edge a little more. So a couple of those teams that we thought might jump on him took an edge rusher instead. Okay. And Malachi was sitting there for the Ravens at 27, and they were surprised, I'm sure, and very happy that he was there.
Speaking of maybe surprised he was there, was Mike Green in round 2 to get an edge guy that it wouldn't have been shocking to see him go in the top 15 or 20, and yet they get him in round 2, and there's really only one reason that he lasts until round 2, has a lot to do with the off the field stuff. And he's kind of still having to deal with that. But if any organization is going to do their due diligence and for sure that they're just not going to get a guy if they haven't, dug deep under every rock and crevice to make sure that this kid is a legitimate kid and he's going to be good for the community and all that, it's the Baltimore Ravens.
Well, yeah, definitely. That's a class organization. And I don't know, Mike Green, anything about the allegations. My understanding was there are things that were from years ago that, came out. And, how valid they are, how much of an issue they're going to be remains to be seen. I don't think Baltimore would have taken him if they felt that there was going to be some things that they were going to have to deal with down the road with him. From a football standpoint, one of the guys that does some stuff with us interviewed him, spent some time with him at the Senior Bowl, and he told me he was just a super intelligent football player. He has a plan as a pass rusher. He has a wide variety of pass rush moves that he can use in his arsenal, counter moves, and he knows how to set up offensive players. He's got great speed to pressure as far as those numbers are concerned. And he's got good speed. He's not exactly the most sudden guy at the snap, but once he gets going, he makes up for it with tremendous speed. He can turn the corner. He can counter inside. He can play the run. He can take on pullers, and he can spill them, and he can make plays in the backfield against the run. This is a real good This is a good edge rusher that realistically, we thought he should have been a top 20, at least a top 25 pick. So I think the Ravens were very surprised that he was there.
Yep. So they get two of the most valued picks in the draft already, in both Malachi Starks and Mike Green. And then in the fourth round, sticking to defense, they go with Teddy Buchanan from Cal. And you might have saw Buchanan in the East-West. He had over 100 tackles this past season, 5 sacks as well. He was a first-team All-AAC, started his career at UC Davis, had some winning seasons there, and then transferred that experience over to Cal, and now he's with the Ravens.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a run on linebackers that surprised us a little bit. Some of these guys that we thought might have gone a little later, the corners kind of went a little later, and the linebackers went a little earlier than we expected. And there was the run, and Teddy Buchanan was a part of that run. Solid pick. He's a very fundamentally sound linebacker with good instincts, good movement skills in line. He good inside run fits. He can play outside on the edge and run downs. He's got good blitz skills, and he's also a very good cover linebacker. This is a guy that I think the Ravens, see as a guy that can play the role that Malik Harrison played, and probably do it better if they decide to use him that way. He'll compete to probably start alongside Roquan Smith with Trenton Simpson, and I think there's some other guys that'll be competing there too. But he could have that role, where occasionally you're going to line him up on the edge, especially over a tight end. He got good height, good size for inside backer, and I think the Ravens were looking for that type of player, and I think they got him in Buchanan.
Yeah, sticking with the linebackers, they added 2 after the draft, one being Jay Higgins from Iowa, who had a decorated career, and the other one is Chandler Martin from Memphis, who also is very productive for Memphis, and one of the free agent college kids that I actually like. But talk about Higgins, because this is a kid who pretty much did everything in college.
Yeah, we felt Higgins was draftable. We had him down the line as a draftable player. But I think if you look at 2 things that are really negatives, the size and speed. I mean, when you're not real big and you're not real fast, those are negatives. But instinctive, tremendous instincts, very productive as a Big Ten Power 4 football program, and a good defensive team as well. So, this is he's a good football player. He is in the right place in zone coverage. He's got kind of a sixth sense about getting to the football and making plays and limiting gains on short passes and taking away the throwing lane. He can stress quarterbacks' ability to find the throwing lane with his zone concept. But biggest thing he does is inside run fits and his ability to get to the alley. He's got good quickness. He's got excellent agility in traffic. So this is a really good inside linebacker prospect. The problem is at 6 foot, 224 pounds, and 4'8", 40, I think is what we had on him. That doesn't necessarily translate, into a bona fide NFL starter. But he's a football player. He can play. And he'll probably get a shot on special teams. And we'll just see where it goes. Chandler Martin is another guy who's undersized. That probably hurt him a little bit more, being short. But, hey, he's also a solid player.
Yeah, I mean, I had to look at him after I saw the stats, and I really was like, really? Did this kid really put these stats up this past year? And even the last couple of years, if you look at it, a couple of years combined for Memphis, I believe he had 33 tackles for loss, 10 sacks, and 13 quarterback hurries. That's a lot. Forced fumbles, interceptions, a pick six, over 200. I mean, he had everything going for him. But again, lower level, that kind of deal. Again, two highly productive college linebackers that should be given a shot here with the Baltimore Ravens. So keep an eye.
You know, it's a need right now. You know, they've got you know, they're not sure who's going to be that starter next to Roquan Smith.
No.
So there's going to be some competition for that. You know, as far as that goes.
Yeah.
You know, and they drafted they signed a couple of safeties too as free agents. You know, with Darius Washington going down with an Achilles, those guys are going to have a shot.
Yes, because if you look at the two corners first, who were drafted, Longer Beam and Coney. Longer Beam, I think, is definitely going to have a chance to make the team because of the fact that he's a defensive back coached by Greg Schiano. And DBs coached by Greg Schiano are highly coached up. They're smart kids. They're pro ready. They're also usually excellent when you sit down and talk to them. So I think this kid Longer Beam is going to have a shot. What do you think about both of those kids?
You know, here's the irony of it was, you know, they were both taken in the 6th round, one at 178, one at 212. From what I understand, is there was a debate in the room over who they were going to take, Cone or Longer Beam at round 6. I think Cone's upside is more than Longer Beam's, and I think that's what won the day. But Longer Beam was sitting there, and he was too good to pass up. Too good to pass up at 212. So they took him there too. They took both players. And they're gonna get a shot. I think Longer Beam has some nickel experience. He can do that. He's a smart kid. Cone has great speed, very good zone defender. His metrics are very good. We looked at him, you know, earlier in the year on the metrics. We really liked what we saw, and you know, I think we maybe had a little higher grade on than he went even. But we had a higher grade on a lot of the corners that they went because I think the run on linebackers pushed those guys down.
And the other two kids you talked about at safety, Jackson played at a lower level school, but also played really well down there and was somebody that I know that we talked about early on in the season. And Igbinosun, another Rutgers kid. And
well, both of these safeties are big kids. You know, they're big, tough kids that can play overhang. Jackson probably has a little bit more skill over the top. You know, I've seen him play in person, you know, Illinois State, close by. Saw him early in his career, and he's a physical kid, good close to the ball safety, but he's got enough to play. He can play in the deep zones. He's got good instincts. He'll have a shot to make the team now, as will the other guy from Rutgers. I can't.
Igbinosun.
Okay. They'll both have a shot at making the team for the simple reason it looks like Darius Washington is not going to be there. So until way late in the season with his Achilles injury and his off-season workouts.
Yeah, I'll definitely get an opportunity to talk more about him when we talk with Tony Lombardi because I believe it's his brother who is Davison, who plays for Ohio State. He's going to have to, I will tell you this, he's going to have to clean up, his brother's going to have to clean up the hands approach because he's a flags machine if he's going to make it in the NFL, but they're both very talented kids. Again, just like I said with Longer Beam, any DB that's coached by Schiano is going to have a shot. Moving on to the final pick on defense, and that is Aeneas Peebles, who they also got in round 6. And this is a nice little penetrating, undersized defensive tackle. I think they got something here too.
Aeneas Peebles, named after Aeneas Williams.
Oh, okay. We remember him. Arizona.
Yeah, he's got a long history in the NFL. He's got an uncle that played Wilkerson that played the NFL. So there's some history there. This is an undersized kid with an incredible motor. You know, and I think there was some debate, and John liked him a lot. John Harbaugh, that came out that, you know, that was a guy he was really high on, and you know, quick off the ball, penetrate, and just create fits up and down the line as far as stunts. very good inside pass rusher. I think his 91%. He had one of the highest pass rush pressure rates of anybody in college football. So I think it might have been the highest, as a matter of fact. So this is a kid they drafted to be, I believe, a sub-package interior pass rusher who will help Matabike. Take some pressure off Matabike. Matabike had a great year 2 years ago, 13 sacks, whatever it was, right in that number. And a lot of attention was given to him. And with Aeneas Peebles, who are you going to double team? Because Aeneas Peebles, a single block, he's going to beat a lot of those interior guards. So this is going to help their pass rush and passing situations in the interior. And I think they're excited about having him.
Yeah, they just loaded themselves up with a lot of talent on defense, and the Ravens really needed some fresh, young players on that side of the ball. Kind of slipped a little bit defensively last year.
They could still use another big kid in their interior. They've got players now, but they need a little bit more depth there. I think that's something I think we'll have to pay attention to down the road here.
And then on offense, they weren't done. There were still more draft picks. Taking a look at their top pick overall, offensive tackle Emory Jones.
Well, this is a kid that was part of that great LSU offensive line that helped elevate Jaden Daniels to his status. And he's a solid pick. I think he's got a chance to be a really good tackle. Could potentially kick inside and play guard. A right tackle primarily is probably where we could see him, but I think he could, he's got a chance to. I think he can play both sides, and I think he's a physical kid that he's a solid pick for them.
Yeah, when I talk to Tony, one of the things I'll ask him definitely will be about whether or not they will eventually move Rose Garden to left tackle to slide Emory Jones into right. That's something that could happen. Ronnie Stanley's not going to be there much longer. So eventually they have to replace him. And that's why they even doubled down on Carson Vincent in round 5. And speaking of that LSU offensive line, they also drafted Garrett Dillinger.
Yeah, he's a guard. He's a pure guard. And, that's a need position potentially for them. They're not 100% sure. Obviously they got a lot out of Falele last year. And, Voorhees was, nicked up quite a bit over the last 2 seasons. He was a starter early. And, Makari's gone now, so they have to have somebody, to compete with Voorhees in that spot. And Dellinger will be one, but they've got other guys too that they can slide in there. Carson Vincent is an interesting player. Upside, tremendous. We liked him. We noticed him. Hayden saw him. He did the HBCU guys for us. John Wooten, a good friend of Dan Shanka's, called us and said, "Hey, make sure you guys look at this Vincent. He's really good." John, a former offensive lineman himself, and we did, and we like him. And we think that's a really good pick for the Ravens there. I think this is a guy you might see as your potential left tackle down the road. And he's a guy that potentially could slide inside too. Physical kid with good feet. He's a little bit raw, but he had a tremendous Senior Bowl, and you could really see what he could do. So this is a guy that got a lot of upside, and that's a really good pick for them.
Yeah, matter of fact, it could end up also being, like you said, who knows, maybe Vincent becomes left tackle, Rosengarten sticks at right tackle, and Emory Jones is the swing. I mean, any of those possibilities.
Yeah, possibly. And Emory Jones could be a guard too. And Vincent could, if Vince is a big physical kid, he can knock you off the ball besides, but he's got pretty good feet too. So they've got some good talent there to work with, as far as offensive linemen are concerned.
And then the last pick we're going to discuss is LaJohntay Wester. And Wester was an FAU guy, had over 1,000 yards, over 100 catches in his final season with the Owls in 2023. Went to Colorado last year. Nearly 1,000 yards, 10 touchdowns, made big catches, and also had a couple of punt return touchdowns over the last couple of years.
I think the primary reason they drafted him is because they really need a punt returner, somebody that is a threat to take it to the house. And Wester is that guy. And he'll be a receiver too, but look for him to get a lot of reps as a punt returner, and he very likely will be the guy they have back there. but again, it's a competition. There's still people in their program that can do that. So, and you don't want to forget Tyler Loop either, the kicker from Arizona. As far as special teams are concerned, that was a great pick. Jamie Cole does the kickers for us, and that's his guy. He said that was the top kicker in the country. And the Ravens obviously thought so too. Their kicking coach loved him, and they drafted him. And with Tucker gone, they brought in a guy from Wyoming too. But this is a guy that is going to have a really good shot to be the kicker for the Ravens.
Yeah, again, one of those situations that it just works out perfectly because of Tucker being gone, and you're a draft pick, so you got the leg up. It's going to be his chance, and if it works out, then they've got two young kickers that hopefully could be around for the organization for a long time, because Stout's already off to a good start over his career. We talked about some of the defensive players who were signed after the draft, and they did sign a bunch of other kids after the draft as well on the offensive side. I'm not sure whether or not any of these kids stuck out for you. But it looks like most of the guys that stuck out were on defense.
Yeah, they took a couple of receivers. They got another tackle, a kid from Oregon State, big kid, 6'8", 315. Probably headed for the practice squad if he makes a team. They loaded up on offensive linemen. A kid Holsky from Miami, Ohio, Hutchinson from Albany, smaller school. They got a big defensive tackle from Auburn, Jason Jones, because that's right now the big guy, the big rookie, and they'll have a shot to make the team. So those are some guys that will have a chance. They just recently signed another edge rusher, Kamen Rucker from North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
Who is a really good player.
Yeah.
We liked him as a draft choice. We thought he could be, we had a 6th round grade on him, a low 6th, 7th grade. And he's a free agent, and, they got him. And an interesting pick is a guard from Army, Lucas Scott, who they are going to work at.
Oh.
So that's going to be an interesting.
Okay. Yeah. One of those linemen from Army has to stick. They had such a tremendous run the last couple of years, including this past year. And all those guys, I think they all graduated. So it would be like fitting if one of those guys makes it. So, yeah. And Scott's the most talented, right, out of that group?
Yeah, they feel they did very well in terms of the players they got. I think they're still looking at another interior. The roster's full now, and Rucker was the last guy they signed. And, when they found out that David Ojabo, being of Nigerian descent, he now gives them an exemption. So they have 91, and Rucker became 91. They added another edge rusher. So, okay. And again, there's going to be after June 1 maybe some interesting players available. And the Ravens also there's going to be some people possibly let go after June 1 on that depth chart, which will open up some more spots for them, because I just feel strongly that they would like to get another interior defender, big interior defender, a veteran if they can. They just signed that guard from, that was with the Rams, so it gives them a veteran guard. And so now, no who many his name is, but so now they're going to be looking at, I'm sure, the defensive interior.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to have that. Well, obviously, if you're watching this right now, then you are going to also be taking a look at conversation I had with Tony Lombardi covering the Baltimore Ravens for the Russell Street Report. So depends on, of course, this might be about a week before we do that. So who knows? Maybe that news will come around already. If not, I'll be sure to ask Tony about it, and we'll update it, of course, when you check out this interview segment right here on the Ourlads Football Network, talking about the Baltimore Ravens. But before we do that, I want to thank you, Jon Cooper, once again, and remind everybody about the Draft Review Guide, which, again, should be coming out in late June, correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So for Jon Cooper, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in. And let's go to the interview I did with Tony Lombardi from Russell Street Report. you mentioned Jenkins because it's interesting. I had a video that we recorded a week or so ago because we were supposed to do this a week or so ago. And Jon Cooper from Ourlads, we put together, and if anybody's watching this, you've already seen it because we've edited it in before this video. And Jon talked about the need to add, and he was expecting the team to add another defensive tackle at some point. And lo and behold, just a few days before this interview, that's exactly what they did, adding John Jenkins. So that was one big part of what the team needed to do. And again, they added Peoples before that in the draft. So does that mean, do you think that was like the last piece of the puzzle when it comes to what the team needed to fill out this offseason?
I do not. I still think that there's an opportunity for an edge rusher. If they go to camp, and they've placed a lot of time and energy into David Ojabo, and he just hasn't ever seemed to get back to that form that he had at Michigan. And they're hoping that he does this year. Time will tell. If he's if he is off his game again, or he's just never going to get there after those injuries to the knee and the Achilles, if he doesn't get there, there may be a situation where they go out and they talk to an old friend, Jadeveon Clowney, again, and bring him back in. I also think that there's an opportunity there at safety, because one of the great things about picking Starks with that pick, and I mentioned at the top of the show, is that it freed Kyle Hamilton up to do the things that he did so effectively in 2023. If they don't find the right replacement for Ardarius Washington, with what they have in camp right now, they may be forced to go out there and get that rangy kind of player, like a Justin Simmons kind of guy who can go out and fill in for Ardarius Washington for sure, and allow Kyle Hamilton to do those things. So it wouldn't be bad to have a nice veteran like Justin Simmons playing alongside Malachi Starks.
Okay, so that is also something you see that makes sense. Taking a look at the depth chart, and when that happens, does that mean that would the Simpson come off the field in that circumstance?
He might, and I don't know that he was on the field a lot last year in passing situations. He got a little bit lost at times, and then I think he had a confidence issue, and he didn't see much of the field. You saw more of Chris Board on the field last year, and also Malik Harrison, who the Ravens lost to the Steelers in free agency. Those kinds of guys were filling in at that position in a rotating, down and distance kind of situation. So they're hoping for somebody that can step up and be that full-time guy, or at least a two-down guy. And then they go into the dime packages and whatnot. Hamilton allows them to do more of those kinds of things. And I think with a year under his belt, Zach Orr, who was a rookie defensive coordinator last year, and having Chuck Pagano there with him, I think that bodes well for the team. And then, Dean Pease has also come along again for the ride.
Speaking of Ojabo, what is his designation right now? What's his status?
He's the 91st player on the roster, and that's because he somehow fits into the international equation. Eric DeCosta is always looking for every nook and cranny he can to take advantage of these kinds of things. Okay. You mentioned Jenkins before. He's not officially on the roster yet, although he's signed. They're making that official June 2nd because that's the designation for Michael Pierce's retirement, so that they can get the most out of the so it's not as big a hit on their salary cap.
Do they have to make any more cuts? Do you expect anyone else to get the hammer on June 1st?
No, they don't have to.
Okay.
I don't. I really can't even tell you who that could be. There was a lot of talk earlier in the offseason about Mark Andrews, and maybe they would trade him because it would create some salary cap relief. I'm so glad that they did not trade him, because he's such a hard worker. He had a awful end to the 2024 season when he dropped that pass in Buffalo. But other than that, he's been a stalwart. He's been everything you could ask for from a player. And I'd like to see him go at least one more year with the team, with this team, with Likely. And now they've added DeAndre Hopkins to the receiver mix. I think that all those weapons available to Lamar, Keaton Mitchell will be healthier this year. He's another weapon that they can throw out there. They've improved across the offensive line. I just think that this team could be a juggernaut in 2025.
Yeah, one of the players they did cut, and I don't know how long ago it was they did cut Mollett, correct? And I guess they
Yes,
saved
they
a
did.
couple of million there.
Yeah, that was pretty much not long after the season they let him go.